Hey guys, James Hinchcliffe here from Daytona International Speedway. It is one of the biggest weekends in racing all year long, the Daytona 24-hour race. We're all very excited to be here. In the prototype class this year, big changes. Every single team's got a brand new car. I'm here representing Mazda, and I want to show you, with the help of my fellow drivers, a little bit more in-depth information about the RT24-P sitting right behind me. Let's take a look. So we'll kick off very appropriately at the front of the car, and I'm going to be joined first by Mr. Joel Miller, who will be co-piloting the 70 with me, and we're here in the front corner. Joel, first thing I notice as a layman is someone forgot to tighten the brake caliper and it fell to the bottom of the rotor here. What happened?
Yeah, you're spot on there. Normally on your street cars, you'll see the brake rotor back here. Here on the Mazda RT24-P, it's on the bottom, 6 o'clock position. The main reason for that, center of gravity. That's the positives, and really the only negatives there would be serviceability or when you bleed the brakes, because that happens with gravity, and well, if you're on the bottom, air can't really come up, right? But for center of gravity performance, much better. A lot of F1 technology right there.
Carbon brakes on this. Are we going to have to change pads in this race?
No, not at all. That's the joy of the carbon brakes. They perform better and they last a lot longer, and they work the best when they're hot, so that's why at night you're going to see all 4 rotors glowing.
That's always a cool look. Now, another thing I noticed that differs from a lot of other race cars, my Indy car included, is how you adjust the ride height here. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the system on this car?
So a lot of the other cars, you'll see a threaded piece in this area. For us, we have shims, and that really helps make sure all the like the quality control. When you adjust the ride height, it's the same every time. You pull a different shim thickness. You can see this one's a lot thicker than some of these middle ones or these yellow ones. Each one is a millimeter here or a little bit more. So when they want to come in, do a 5 mil adjustment, we come in, pull one out, tighten it up, send it right back on.
I want you to know as a Canadian how much I appreciate you just saying millimeter there and not fractions of an inch. So basically it's a much more consistent system, doesn't have mechanics eyeballing it, makes it nice and precise. Okay, something everybody's going to want to know, myself included, what's under the blanket?
Well, it's not that the car's cold. There's some special stuff under here specific to Mazda, and we like to keep that under wraps, but let's go to the back.
All right, we'll take a look at the back of the car now. This way. So now we're here to the back of the RT24-P, and there is a blanket, but I think Joel's going to be kind and remove this one for us and show us what I would call a very atypical sort of rear suspension setup. Joel, why don't you explain a little bit about what's happening down here?
So the car, when you get to the cockpit, you'll see it's adjustable roll bars front and rear. So this is our rear roll bar, and this blade from the cockpit, we can move it to be vertical or flat. So when it's vertical, obviously it's much harder to push, so it's in the stiff position, and then when it's flat, it'll bend, and that controls helps control our rear roll here on the back of the car, which leads me to my next point. You can see our damper layout. The spring and the damper are separate. Very specific to Riley. This idea came out in the mid-90s. I believe it was the Mark III, and really it's to help control the damper. You get higher damper velocities just based on the motion ratio here. So very specific to the Mazda car and the Riley chassis.
Is there any advantage in terms of the amount of time it takes to make, say, a spring adjustment or a damper adjustment because of that setup?
Yes, you know, you don't have to take the damper off to do the spring, but you still got to get the shimming correct. So you might think, but it's still the same amount of time.
All right, so all about the on-track here. Okay, that's the back of the car done. Now we're going to move on to the cockpit, and Tristan Nunez is going to show us a thing or two. So now we're here with Tristan Nunez, who's going to be one of the pilots of the 55 car, and we're going to take an in-depth look at the cockpit, where we're going to be spending the better part of 24 hours. Let's do it. All right, Tristan, when you think about somewhere you want to spend 24 hours, this looks a little cramped and confined to me. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what's going on for us inside the cockpit here?
So yeah, definitely the cockpit's a lot tighter than what I'm usually used to. This is definitely a skinnier car. I don't know if Joel mentioned that earlier, but the seat itself, we spent a lot of time making sure that it was a comfortable seat that we could run during a long stint. So we have a lot of leg support over here. You can see that the whole seat itself is really shaped around the driver's body, which is kind of tough to, you know, I'm the tallest guy on the team, so in order to make it comfortable for everyone, it was a little challenging, but you know, it's one of those give and take type deals.
All right, so give me an overlay of some of the switches, some of the adjustments, some of the controls that we have as drivers here in the cockpit.
So the first one we see here is the roll bar adjustment. So we have front and rear roll bar adjustments that we can mess with during a long stint when the tires start to go away. So it's at the touch of the driver's hand, so they kind of just leave it up to us depending on what we want. The switch panel, it's pretty basic.
It looks like it can launch a space shuttle. It doesn't look basic at all.
Well, that's what the preparation comes into play. You know, they have us at the shop making sure we know every switch, where it is, even with our eyes closed, because you never know what could happen in one of these cars. You could be surrounded by smoke and you have to know where the fire button is. So just one of those things that we have to spend a lot of time learning. But moving on, you know, we actually have 3 screens in the car this year. So
backup cameras, I'm assuming?
Yes, actually that is one of the screens. It's a lower screen. The top screen is a marshalling screen, so if there is a full course yellow, we'll be able to see that, and it kind of blinks at us and shows us in depth of, you know, where the yellow is and the severity of it. And then we have the third screen on the dash of the steering wheel. Tight
Confines in here. How is it getting in and out? Are driver changes going to be more of a challenge this year than they have been in years past?
Well, I'm sure you're wanting to know a lot about choreography, so there's going to be a lot of choreography that goes into getting in and out of these cars for sure. So definitely a lot of driver change practice, and it's going to be challenging, but I'm sure just like anything, we'll be able to learn and adapt to it.
We'll just try and dance our way in and out as best we can. Now, a quick look at the Mazda RT24-P might have you think that this giant fin at the back is just so we can put a great big Mazda sticker on it. Not true. And Tom Long's going to come in here and explain a little bit more about how integral this fin really is to the entire race car.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So a little different than our previous chassis. This is actually a structural piece to the car. It does split the engine cover now. So we actually have 2 engine covers, a right side and a left side, whereas before it was one big piece. But really what this is designed for is safety. It gives the car stability. If it ever experienced a side load, an extreme side load, it'll actually straighten the car back up. It creates a high pressure area so that we as drivers can keep it going in a straight line.
So that could be helpful on the banking and the wet at 2 o'clock in the morning kind of thing.
I would say.
So we're now down pretty much inside the rear structure of the car. Any features stand out about this, maybe different from the previous model?
Yeah, well, what you can see actually is that the rear wing hangs now, and then instead of being supported from the bottom. So that is a new feature to our T24P chassis this year. A lot more aero effectiveness, efficiency, and makes us get through that streamline speed a lot quicker.
Wait, are you saying that there's some long straightaways here at Daytona?
We'll find out.
Fellow IndyCar driver Spencer Pigot's the next victim here on our Tech Talk. So Spencer, I couldn't help but notice there's no window at the back of the car. And those side mirrors sometimes aren't awesome. How do we see what's coming up?
Well, I'm glad you noticed that because you have driven the car a couple times. So
What?
it is good that you noticed that. But yeah, so obviously in the old car it was a little different. We didn't have this new technology. So a really neat feature here, we got the rear view camera that live feeds to the screen in the cockpit so we can see everything that's coming up behind us. And as you know, it can be a little tricky at times to see perfectly out of the rear view mirrors, you know, especially high speeds here at Daytona, vibrations at night, if it's raining. So this is just, you know, a very welcomed piece for us, I think. It's super clear, nice and bright. You can see what's happening. And also in addition to the spotter up there, lets you know what's going on.
Mirrors, rear view camera, spotter, anything you can do. The more information you've got in these tricky conditions, especially here at night, is going to be a help. We're joined now by Jonathan Bomarito, who already has a Rolex Daytona on his wrist. It came from the last Speed Source win here at the Speedway back in 2010, hoping to add another one this year. Jonathan, let's get to the heart and soul of this car, the engine. Now, there's been some development over the last couple years. Tell us what this year's engine's like and how it feels to drive.
Yeah, it's based off the same power plant that we ran last year. It's the MZ 2.0T. A lot of work has gone into the engine over the off season, developing new parts, improving our reliability, and the horsepower has gone up this year across the board as well. So not only now do we have more downforce, it's a little bit more slippery in a straight line, more power. The car's a little narrower, a little longer, so it really does everything better. It's faster down the straights, more downforce in the corners, it stops better. It's a kick in the pants to drive.
Now, we've heard all about the car, everything that's new about it, but from inside the car, what are you feeling different from last year?
Yeah, I mean, you're feeling more loads through your body, through the G-forces that you feel. Your sight picture, you know, you can brake a little bit later, come off the brake, try to roll a little bit more min-corner speed through the center of the corner. It just has a little bit more grip everywhere. You can be a more aggressive back to power. You know, really all the teams and advances in technology, the traction control systems keep getting better and better. So, you know, it's back to, I kind of relay this car a little bit to my Formula Mazda Atlantic days where, you know, you're muscling it around a little more. You can be more aggressive with your inputs, not as on top of the road feeling inside the car.
So it's got more power, it brakes better, and goes faster in the corners. That sounds to me like the trifecta of driver happiness right there. So we'll wrap this segment up with arguably the most important guy in the program. This is head of Mazda Motorsports, Mr. John Doonan. And John, we're standing next to your baby, this beautiful race car here, and it is based off a Riley chassis. But it looks very different from your typical Riley chassis. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how Mazda ended up with the car that it's got?
Well, this is a monumental event for Mazda to kick off the RT24-P at the Rolex 24. What has led up to this is magical, and I'm one person in that wheel because there's been so many folks that played a key role. And the best analogy I can give to what's transpired is, frankly, what you experienced on Dancing with the Stars. When you put a professional dancer with someone who's an athlete that doesn't have that experience or has more of a technical mind in a room together, amazing things can happen. And truly what happened here is our designers, the same designers that designed Mazda road cars with the signature 5-point grille and all the Kodo design language into a room with race engineers and aerodynamicists that make things go fast. There's a little scary moment there because you don't know what's going to transpire, but what really transpired is a beautiful race car, a very efficient, friendly race car, and friendly to the air, and hopefully a winning race car in the end.
So you use the term Kodo design. Tell us a little bit about what that means.
Kodo design is Mazda's current design philosophy for our road cars, the look and feel, and when someone sees a Mazda, it speaks to them, and that's a key brand pillar to us. We believe that Kodo design is a distinctive element of Mazda, and we believe that a car is art, and our designers work that way. They start with clay, they work with not just a vehicle, but they start with forms of art, sculptures, that end up becoming a road car. And that's why cars like the MX-5 Miata have received World Design Car of the Year awards because they are so distinctive and consumers have identified with that as a key brand pillar of Mazda.
Well, I got to say, I've grown up around race cars. I love race cars, and I've noticed a very distinct correlation between beautiful race cars and fast race cars. And I got to say, this is one of the prettiest ones I've seen, so hopefully when it hits the track, it's fast enough.
I hope so. We have certainly worked hard, everybody on the race team, all of my staff, the engineers. It's really a family effort here, and I hope come Sunday afternoon we're able to celebrate that with completion of the Rolex 24 and hopefully ultimate success.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, John, and thanks to my fellow drivers. Hope you guys enjoyed the tour around the RT24P, and hopefully we'll see you at the end of 24 hours.